District 3, serving as this year's council president. Lee Green, District 4.
Oh, you did. Rick Rippey, City Council at Large.
Sophie Hufford, District 1.
Tom Dozel, Mayor.
Tamara Clark, Clerk Treasurer.
Thank you for joining us this evening. You've got copies of the minutes from last meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we accept the May 9th, 2022 minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Rick.
Second.
Thank you, Rick, for the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there any amendments to the agenda for this evening? Seeing none, hearing none. We've got a public hearing for Ordinance 2022-05, which is an ordinance for TMU to proceed with steps to opt out of the jurisdiction of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, IURC. We will open the public hearing at this point. Jim, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Jim Ankrum, General Manager, Tipton Municipal Utilities. This would be a follow-up to a letter that went out to all of our electrical ratepayers about a month ago. Follow-up to Common Council meeting on May 9th. And just reiterate some of the reasons that the Utility Board and the utility and myself believe this is a good step for the city and the electrical ratepayers. So first of all, we haven't had an electric rate case since 2004, so we'll be coming on close to 20 years before we evaluate that process again. I feel like it's important. I've got counsel from many experts in the electrical field and the government that have indicated that opting out of the IURC ahead of that discussion, it would be a good move for the city of Tipton and the ratepayers. In addition, being in the IURC, even without rate cases, costs the city and the utility approximately $10,000 per year just to follow the steps prescribed by the IURC, normal reporting, auditing, publications of quarterly changes, and then a very cumbersome annual report that we have to do, just like Duke Energy, just like NIPSCO, just like all the private investor-owned utilities. So $10,000 over the last 10 years or last 20 years, that's $100,000 to $200,000 I feel like we could invest elsewhere and get much better return for that. Also wanted to note, as I did in the letter, that the Tipton Municipal Water Utility at one time was under IURC, and in 2001, members of the Common Council and the mayor at that time opted out of the water utility, and since then we've had numerous rate increases in the water utility, yet we remain one of the most, if not the most competitive in water rates in this area. So I believe there's a history and a process followed that has allowed us to handle that responsibility, be fiscally responsible, and not have the burden of on the back end of what the IURC would require us. And I'll get to that in a minute. Lastly, from my comments, and I'm going to reiterate some from our attorney that was here at the last meeting, but my goal is to remain competitive with our rates. I want to leverage what our already low rates allow us to attract people, attract business, attract others to this community. I believe our utility rates, you know, it might not be the leading reason why somebody would want to come here, but it certainly would be check box in the favorable column to why an entity or a family. Our rates are, depending on how you look at it, 10 to 20% lower than surrounding areas where you have Duke Energy, American Electric Power. So my goal in the future in the utility boards is to remain competitive, and I think we can handle that. And I think with Common Council and Mayor, whoever that might be at the time, can handle that responsibility. So Again, I believe it's the time to act, though, now on the opt-out and down the road whenever the rate discussion would happen. I'd also reiterate, Christina Wheeler with Bose McKinney and Evans was here at the first reading, and she's not here tonight, but a couple of her points is the IURC is a really big bureaucratic state administrative machine. 100 to 200 people, and their focus, as it should be, is dealing with investor-owned utilities who are out to make a profit, and they have to go through processes to increase their rates. So I think very soon you'll be reading about the cost of electricity from some of these investor-owned utilities is going up, 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 and they have to go in front of the IURC and let them evaluate where you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of rate cases. So unfortunately, the IURC applies the same standards, the same processes to Tipton. At a point in time, we want to do that. In fact, I talked to my counterpart in Frankfurt, who's an IPA subsidiary. They went through an electrical rate case in 2017, and they recommended a 10% increase. It got approved by the Common Council, signed off by the mayor, and then the IURC gets involved, and they're again on the back end. And it took about 8 to 10 months to get through their process, and he indicated they had spent $300,000 on consulting fees, experts, lawyers, accountants, just to answer the numerous questions that the IURC would put in front of them. And the same thing would happen to us. I said, okay, what'd you get for that $300,000? Well, instead of getting a 10% increase in the rate, we got 9-point-something%. So the IURC justified their positions and negotiated a settlement at the cost of $300,000 to that utility. And as it's been explained to me, we would be looking at similar costs regardless how big we are. It's the process that counts as far as the IURC and that kind of cost. So where does that gets eventually has to be figured into what our rates are. So that cost gets passed on to our customers, all of us in this room. And again, I just don't think that's a wise investment of our time or money. She pointed out, I believe, that there's other checks and balances also in place. So first of all, you've got a utility board made up of city and county residents and electric TMU ratepayers. That five-member board is not going to recommend a rate case to the city common council that hasn't been fully vetted, doesn't have tremendous backup and expertise behind it. If and when something comes in front of the common council, there will be plenty of information to help make an informed decision. So there's check and balance in place there. You've got the utility board. You've got the common council. Again, as I mentioned with the water rates, it's been proven through the years after numerous water rate increases that we still are able to maintain competitive rates. And again, that's my goal, and that's the goal of the utility board. Lastly, we have to report to the State Board of Accounts. They make sure we follow the law, and the law says as a not-for-profit, there's certain amounts of, profitability built into your rates. It's not like an investor-owned who has to return some of that to shareholders. We have to, remain viable and fiscally responsible to run our business and take care of our utility assets, and that State Board of Accounts is there to check off on that. We're doing it properly and per the law. So, those safeguards are in place, and we get audited every year. I think COVID kind of threw a little bit loop, but Clerk Treasurer Clark can attest, and she works very closely with Joellen Downs and Art in the utility, and they report anything and everything, voluminous pieces of information to the state board. And thankfully, with Clerk Treasurer Clark and Joellen and others in place, we tend to fly with, pass with flying colors. They do such a really good job, and things are by the book. So very appreciative of that. So that is more or less what we talked about at the last meeting. what is in the letter. I'll pause and take any questions you guys might have and then turn it over to anybody in the audience that would like to discuss in the public hearing.
Does anybody got any immediate questions of Jim?
How many members of the utility board must reside outside the city? 2?
I don't know
Or
that
is it
there's
strictly
a
political
rule. I don't-
party?
Political.
They're all political appointments from the mayor and the common council.
And 1 has to be, or 2 have to be from the opposing political party of the mayor. Is that correct? You basically can't pack
Not
it.
of the
right.
mayor
You
necessarily.
can't poke it, you can't pack it with all Republicans or all Democrats.
I think
That's why we had to have Ms.
correct.
Cardwell and
correct.
Steve on it. Okay. Yeah, we had to scare up some Democrats.
Quality, not quantity.
100%. They're both, no, they really
Thanks
are.
for saying so, though.
They are both top notch, and I'm not even joking. They're great people. Okay, that's the only question I had.
Anyone else? Questions of Jim before we open up the floor? Thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you for explaining it. Is there any other public comments for or against Ordinance 2022-05? Please. If you would, state your name and address.
Evening, my name is Keaton Summers. I live at 202 Park Road, Tipton. Apologies if this was mentioned at the last meeting, I wasn't able to make it, but I was wanting some clarification on 2 of the items in the letter. The first one is number 3, why do they want out? It says that currently, as mentioned, we pay a lot of money into them anytime we do anything, and that money is right, and that cost is rightfully passed on to the customers. If we remove ourselves from the IURC, will that cost saving be passed on to the customers?
I think Jim would share that, of course, a cost savings would be passed on, and their whole calculation of, operating expenses, lower cost to operations would help to keep things down, if you want to hear it from Jim.
No, that's accurate. Very, very true.
So a possible rate decrease even per kilowatt hour.
Rate, we haven't had a rate evaluation or adjustment since 2004, so there's not
Correct.
been anything built in since then. We go forward, whether it's next year or 5 years from now, at that point in time, if we're still under IURC, that would get worked into the equation. So we're avoiding, it's cost avoidance. So we're not taking anything that's already built in, it's just cost avoidance moving forward.
So no end user effect on rates at this time.
Not at this time.
Okay. And then the last one, number 6, it said, what would result in the lowest rates for me, staying or withdrawing? And according to this, it says, in order to change the rate, we have to go through and pay all the extra money and stuff. Now, the way I read this, and I could be misreading it, it says, approval for rate adjustments as well as the fees charged, lower rate adjustments would result if we withdraw. Now, is that saying the cost to change the rate would decrease, or the amount that it is being increased would decrease?
Well, the cost to change the rate would decrease, therefore the rate itself would decrease.
So instead of a 10%, we would get a 9.9%
Yes,
increase.
whatever we come up with, again, will be backed up with independent studies and additional information. It won't just be at the whim of the utility board, hey, we need to raise rates. Here's why we need and what we need. There would be lots of data to back it up.
So it would be in-house consulting rather than IURC.
Yes.
That answers my questions. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much, Keegan. Anyone else?
A motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Rick.
Who's Nick?
Sorry, combined. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. We've got the actual ordinance later on in our agenda here. Any other comments? Going to committee reports, Board of Works and Safety.
Yeah, we had a busy meeting today, and busy morning. So this morning, we actually interviewed 2 firefighters, potential firefighters, both with paramedic or in-progress paramedic training, and took those under consideration. We're going to send Tyler Davis to public medical. He is not being hired officially at this time. It's just we're keeping him in place because we will be hiring soon. Then we approved the street closure for Tipton on Tap on June 4th. Same footprint as last year, but a little more going on. Got an update from the fire and police department. Then the bulk of the meeting was actually talking about enforcement. We talked about 208 East Jefferson, 899 East Jefferson, aka Needlers, 455 North Condy, and 461 North Condy. No fees were levied at this time or fines, but we're kind of getting to the end of the time frame for all those. So we will probably be discussing those at a future meeting. That was it. Any questions?
Thank you, Nate. Cemetery Board, Park Advisory Board.
You're on the wrong side. Isn't this the second meeting?
Hey, Tim, we're on a second.
Fair enough. Gulf Advisory Committee.
That'd be Ken.
Gotcha. You've got a report, I think, in there from the Gulf Advisory Board. Goodwill Committee meeting.
Mr. Mayor, Goodwill met this past Wednesday in the council chambers. Present was myself, Councilman Amon, you, Commissioner Henderson, and Councilwoman Jan was there. And it was a good discussion as always, good exchange of ideas, and always nice to get to visit with our counterparts on the county side of things.
Got it? Thank you. And we had jelly donuts this time.
We did, and they were delicious.
Gotcha. Solid Waste District Board meeting.
We met today, Mayor, right here in this room, and pretty productive meeting. Thanks to the mayor for filling in. I had a work emergency on the pre-budget meeting. We're in a much better spot than we've been in years past, trying to match expenses with revenue and not having to raise taxes or borrow against our savings. So we're coming in line. The big thing we also discussed was moving forward with the school program to start the recycling both at Tri-Central and at Tipton. And we've had a volunteer come forward at one school at least. I'm sure Tri-Central will be easy to be the sponsor and be the school educator when it comes to recycling. That was the bulk of the meeting.
Thank you. Street, alley, and sidewalk.
Yeah, we had a good meeting the other day. Mike said the sidewalk program is almost full for the year. The mayor asked for him to take a good look at that because he wanted to get as many sidewalks in as we could. One of our big topics was stop signs. There's been a lot of requests for adding stop signs, maybe slowing traffic down a little bit. I know Councilman Chandler has requested one. I think there's about a half a dozen we talked about, I think.
There's been a number of requests.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're gonna look at that in June, right? Or make a decision in June.
We're going to make a recommendation in June, and as mentioned in Board of Works, we're looking at some type of pattern. In other words, rationale to how many streets you go without a
Forward.
stop sign, and then where we should have stop signs. So,
Yeah.
yep.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is a regular stop sign all right, or all of them going to be flashing ones? Because I know the flashing ones are very expensive, but can we also consider a regular stop sign so we could maybe do more stop signs at maybe the same cost that less of them would cost?
We haven't really discussed that, but I do know that it helps people notice them after 100 years of not stopping at that street, you know.
I understand
And,
the thought
So
process.
it's just a safety
Yeah.
type thing. If somebody thinks somebody's going to stop them, and they don't, but no, I haven't talked.
I think it was
about
grant money that the street department had secured for those flashing stop signs. So, yeah, I can appreciate your point that if it's a money issue between more stop signs and whether they're flashing stop signs, that we would want more stop signs. And I'll ask Mr. Frazier if he'd be okay with a flashing stop sign down Maple or not, just a, okay, got it, just
Wouldn't keep you awake
getting
at
a
night,
little
Benny?
public opinion on, on red lights flashing. Gotcha.
I have a follow-up question. So what are we trying to solve with stop signs?
I think a lot of it, but basically public safety, but I mean, a lot of it, and I'm guilty. I know Rick had requested one at Mill Street on North and Mill, and I live on Oak Street, and I catch myself time after time, if I'm coming off of Main Street, I can get to moving pretty quick before I get to Oak Street.
So you're trying to
Yeah.
change behavior, right? But
Exactly.
it's not you that they're worried about. It's behavior of people who are already not gonna, they don't abide by any sign.
Oh.
So all this is for naught unless we can get more patrol. As Mr. Frazier has noticed, there's more patrol. So maybe it's something we also need to take a bigger step back and say, maybe we need to be patrolling the north side or issuing more tickets
Yeah.
to change that behavior.
Well, and I think with the, and I think that's the key right there is tickets. So the patrolling and, I know if you run a stop sign, it's gonna hurt. That ticket's gonna hurt.
It should.
And, yeah, and just try to slow the traffic. Yeah, just try to slow the traffic down and, you know, we're not trying to keep anybody from getting to work on time or anything like that. I think it's just, let's just all just take our time.
Yeah, I agree.
Try not to run over
Just
anybody.
saying 9 times
Yeah.
out of 10, it's not you that they're
Yeah.
worried about. It's the 25-year-old or younger that's not going to
Yeah,
stop until
yeah.
you.
Well, I don't know,
give
on
them
North
$200
Street, they
ticket.
might want to be worried about me because I've caught myself moving
Slow
pretty
down.
quick, so.
Hold on, Rick, you're telling too much here, okay?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, I
We
hope
all need to just slow down and, you know, we're trying to put these in place to slow down traffic, follow speed limits, you know, just be cognizant of also follow those requests when you ask for things to slow down.
Yeah.
Be that person that slows that vehicle down behind you by staying in the speed limit.
Yeah.
Also,
Yep.
with that being said, we've had a number of homes sell, and they're selling to a number of young families, and so there are a lot more children. We don't want to be facing some kind of situation when a stop sign has been requested because the neighbors who live in those communities knows, just from being out there every day, what's going on, and now we've got a situation. So, and we, of course, don't want a child hurt.
Lord, no.
So if we have a stop sign, people get used to the fact there's a stop sign eventually, and hopefully police will get them with that. But it is to slow them down, Nate. I mean, they really bust a nut going on there.
I agree.
Even the north and
wholeheartedly
south
agree.
ones.
Oh, yeah.
I just know how certain people are. You're going to get the good
Oh, yeah, this-
citizens will stop. It's the ones that, they obviously
Yeah,
don't care.
that
They don't abide by the
18-year-old
speed
kid.
limit now,
Yeah.
so.
There's a lot more children on my street than whenever I first moved in because there's been so many homes on sale there, and a lot of new families have moved in.
So we're trying to do what we can to help with public safety.
Thank you. Plan Commission.
Planning Commission did not meet. We did not have anything on the agenda to have a meeting.
Got it? Thank you. Utility Board.
Utility Board met, Mr. Mayor, May 16th on the council chambers. They would process claims and charge-offs. I've just got 3 items I want to hit on real quick. The Ready Grant portal should soon open, allowing TMU to initiate their connector project. The rest of what I have is some praise to dish out. The first is for our utilities as well as our public servants for an event that happened a week ago Sunday when a Dollar General truck took out a pole in the Pizza King parking lot and made quite a mess. I got to go up there and take some pictures for my job as an insurance agent and saw the mess there firsthand, and also saw a great response from our local utility as well as our local police, fire, and some local companies handling a hazmat issue with some leaky gas from the truck. Omni Electric was out there very quickly. Shoot, even Comcast got on into the act, and they were there too. So But we really appreciate that quick response, and especially want to recognize our utilities. As always, great job. And if you've lived in another community and experienced some of the other utility providers, you'll understand what I'm saying there. The last thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about this letter that's sitting on everyone's desk here, that is from the American Public Power Association, and it is recognizing our IMPA Commissioner, Dick Klein, has being a recipient of the American Public Power Association Honor Roll. I think we all know Dick does a great job. If we don't, definitely take notice. He is a wonderful asset both to our community and to our utility board, and is just an excellent representation to IMPA for us. And we're just so lucky to have him. He has already forgotten more about electric and utilities than most of us will ever learn in a lifetime. So Dick, once again, kudos to you, sir. Appreciate everything that you do for our utility board.
Does that mean he's old?
That's the utility report, Mr. Mayor.
He's wise.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you.
And Mr. Klein, thank you very much. Well-deserved recognition. Any other boards or committees that would like to report at this time?
Oh, the Ordinance Committee met. Forgot. Is that okay if I give an update on that?
Please do.
So the first thing we discussed was the possible limitations of definition of nursing and retirement home, and whether or not that does specifically exclude market and or subsidized housing for the protected class of 55 and older. Matt's interpretation was it doesn't, but he wanted to study it a little more. Maybe it just means we need to clearly define, but not too tightly define it. That way the city BZA and the city council would have still control. But it was his opinion right now, am I correct, that it does not exclude someone like a TWG from building downtown. It would exclude a Miller's or an Autumn Wood, something like that. We also discussed tattoo parlors, and it's Rick and I's opinion that, well, I shouldn't speak for Rick. It's my opinion that we should remove that as well, but we wanted to bring it to the council for future discussion tonight on whether that's something we'd want to consider. Everything else within it, we were fine, no mobile homes, no TV towers, a lot of those made sense. So, no, a sexually oriented business was another one.
You're correct with what you said. I do concur with that, Nate.
So, whenever we feel maybe the time to discuss that, we can. I'm pretty passionate about it.
Are you wanting to make a motion to have an ordinance removing the tattoo parlors?
I'd rather discuss it first. I mean, I'm open to hear opinions. My opinion on it is it's definitely different from sexually oriented business. It's clearly defined as different. And I get it maybe in 1960, but it's 2022. Young professionals have these things. They're considered art. You go anywhere, it's heavily regulated. It's well kept. It's another business that we're excluding some property right from downtown businesses for I don't know why. That's my opinion. But yeah, I think we should remove it.
I agree. Again, do you want me to make a motion that we see about removing that from the ordinance? Because I'm willing, unless you think there has to be more discussion.
Well, I would prefer that we get an answer from Matt on the nursing home, senior living issue and do it all together, if that's okay.
I'm fine with that. It would literally just be striking tattoo. It literally says tattoo parlor, so they'd just be
That's
striking that and then finding out if we even need to do anything with retirement and nursing home. But Matt said he would get back with us by, I think it'll be by it's 3 weeks, so.
So my preference would be to take it up so that we get the verbiage correct with the senior living piece, so that if it's our intent to go ahead and remove both of them at the same time, then we can do it then.
I'm indifferent. I'm fine with that. It would create a little less work for Matt and be easier on us, but I'm indifferent.
Okay. New business. Old business. Mayor's report. I would share that we are scheduled to have a joint RDC School Board meeting on May 31st to discuss TIF and responsibilities and financial outcomes as far as considering a TIF. We expect to have Steve Unger from Bose McKinney and a representative from Reedy Financial at that presentation. So I would welcome everybody to attend that. It'll be over at the school.
Do you have a packet prepared and ready that you can give the council ahead of time? So I can take my time in reading what it is that you are presenting to both the RDC and school board?
I'd be happy to get those circulated prior to. Yep, and it'll
Good.
probably come from Steve and Matt.
I thought you already had them because there was people in the RDC that said that they did get some things, and the school board too. You don't already have something?
We've got some previous presentation stuff that they actually had provided to us, which I'd be happy to provide to you
Sure.
again.
I think all information would be good as far as this is concerned.
Got it? Would be happy to forward that. Okay.
And what time did you say it was on the 31st?
I need to verify it, but I think it's 6:30.
Huh?
I thought the work session started at 5:30 and the regular meeting at 6:30.
I could be correct.
And it's just a discussion, correct?
Correct. Presentation, discussion, yep. Okay, next up were the resolutions and ordinances. Ordinance 2022-05 is the ordinance for TMU to proceed with steps to opt out of the jurisdiction of the IURC. This is the second reading. There's a required 3. So I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-05.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Rick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next up is ordinance 2022-06, which is an ordinance adopting Tipton Municipal Swimming Pool admission fees. This is the second and final reading, and you had gotten that with last meeting's packet. Is there any other comments? If none,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2022-06 on its second and final reading.
Second.
thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. That brings us to claims.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve for payment claims 171165 through 171248 in the amount of $271,277.02.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Properly moved and seconded. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I didn't vote.
Motion carried. Do you have anything else? Anybody have anything else?
Mr. Mayor, the police and fire department are, and you're going to have to help me with what they're calling it.
Teen Academy.
Teen Academy. They're trying to get a teen academy with middle school and high school kids to attend that might be interested someday in becoming public safety employee, and it's just to get them familiarized with some of the things that police and fire have to do as far as their equipment and just all around things that they do. But they're having some trouble getting the word out. So if someone knows of someone that might be interested in that, they might either give Chief Bittner or Chief Stout a call.
Correct. It's a week-long academy introduction for folks interested in going into careers in firefighting or police service.
Yeah.
So they've worked a lot to put together a very informative program. My understanding is years ago, we had something similar as far as this introduction. So if you know anybody, by all means, please point them in the direction of Chief Stout or Chief Bittner. Thanks very much. Got it.
Not sure
They
they've
were
even got
hoping
that
for,
many.
yeah, a 12 to 14, I think, class. So.
Now, that's Tipton or Tri-Central, either. So, yeah, yeah.
I think that's excellent that they're doing
Thank you.
that.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question. On our common council meeting, it's just a typo because I'm not seeing petition, comments, complaints. Or is
It's
that-
not a typo. After what occurred at the last one, I had removed it and wasn't planning on public comment. This crowd looks relatively safe, so I would open it up for public comment at this point, and I hope I'm not misjudging the crowd. Is there any public comment?
Thank you, Tom. Bob Edinger, City of Tipton. I'd like to thank the utility board for everything they do on a regular basis, you know, rates and everything. Probably a pretty tough job. I mean, I live in the city, but, you know, I have a comment concerning the ratepayers who live outside the city who cannot vote for any of you people who pick the utility board. The board assured me at their last meeting that they would have discussion concerning that. I have no idea where that would go, but I'm glad they're at least going to discuss it for those people, which is a good thing. And concerning your possibly not having public comment, I would hate to see that go away, but I also know the law doesn't require it, and if meetings are going to keep ending the way they did last time, you probably shouldn't have it. I thought that was extremely disrespectful, what several members did. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a question. I do
Go
have
right
a
ahead.
question about that. I know that the last meeting was pretty difficult. But I would hate to remove that where the citizens can't give a compliment or have a comment, and even if they complain, just like Mr. Whitman did about me, that's okay for him to do that. I would hate for us to shut people down when it is their opportunity to have a voice, whether it be good or bad. So I hope that's not something that's going to be gauged by the crowd as to whether we're not going to allow these things to happen. So I would like for you to take that in consideration and not be on a meeting by meeting basis. I mean, sometimes we have to face hard things, even if a person doesn't like us, you know.
Okay.
And so I hope that's not something that's going to be done. I do think it has merit, because there was other people who wanted to talk, but it does have merit for people to say, hey, have you thought about this? And they may go in a different direction of something that we've not even had on our plate, and then now we can think about it.
But by all means, disagreement, but I think there is a way you should expect folks to conduct themselves in meetings.
I don't disagree with that, but to take away that privilege for all because of one or two or three or four bad, it's that saying, you know, one bad apple.
Or
I
like
hate
you
to
say,
see that
3,
happen.
4, or 5 bad
Yeah,
apples.
yeah, but we're
I
adults.
appreciate your point. Yep, and like I say, my belief is as long as we can stay constructive with our disagreements, I think it's a good thing to include by all means. Doesn't stop somebody from discussing anything with individual members after or before a meeting, of course, but I'm just not going to have it where it turns into just a very poor representation for folks that are watching.
And for council too, what happens to them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right, yeah.
But I
Our
mean,
conduct
so
as
you're-
well shouldn't be.
You're going to do this on a meeting by meeting then? You're going to be the decider of that? is what I'm asking.
Yeah, maybe I will.
Well, and I think most of our phone numbers and front doors are open to any questions or suggestions that someone might have.
Yeah,
I mean,
by all
anybody can
means,
call me
I think
anytime they
everybody's
want
been
with a
very
question
open
or-
to discussions. I think last week's display, though, was absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah,
And-
I wasn't
And
here,
I'm not
but,
gonna, I'm not gonna oversee meetings that have folks show up and provide information or provide
Or just-
displays like that or anything.
Or just to
So,
badger an individual, yeah.
it's not legally required, as Bob pointed out,
That's true.
and in some cases, probably shouldn't be asked for, so.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.